We have an affordable housing crisis, because where you're seeing presentation of offers, where you're seeing it really heat up, is in the market where housing is really affordable.
Right.
Right? You see the numbers, you see the difference between the higher end homes and, those who we could say are starter, right? Anything under 400,000. So that's where we need to add more inventory. And that's where the city, as an example, is investing in making more projects that are affordable, more projects that are helping those individuals get into the housing market at that end.
So how do they do that? Because I actually don't I've been trying to break down these numbers, but if you look at land,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not affordable. So, I mean, that takes you totally out on that side of it. And where are you going to build those properties for that land value? The cost of construction has went up at least 35% since pre-COVID, cabinet costs and so forth. So how do you make it affordable? Who pays for it? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
like everybody's been saying, let's make affordable housing. And I was like,
how?
that's a myth. There's no such thing as affordable housing.
They need help. 100% they need help. Take a look at is it 40, 43 million, 48? I forget the exact number now. Over 40 million that the city of Saskatoon received for housing, housing accelerator fund, which many people opposed. And we made a point at the association to say, no, we can't talk a big game about housing and wanting more inventory, and then all of a sudden say, yeah, but we don't really like how you're bringing in this housing accelerator fund, right?
Right.
That ship has sailed. We are at a place where every time housing is involved, especially on the affordable housing part, we need to be saying yes every single time. We have a great project across the office.
Where do you see us being a year from now?
I think there's too much unknown right now with the international relationships between countries. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's creating uncertainty in our market. So it's harder to predict anything. It's harder to predict inflation, tariffs, trade. That's a big wild card right now. Although I would say people are getting comfortable with the uncomfortable that we're living. But I can tell you what I hope. I hope that despite all that uncertainty, we are the province that is outperforming, putting our head down, and just delivering and working so that the people who live here can continue to have certainty, buy a home, build their business, and above all, have that a little bit of certainty amidst all the uncertainty that we're living. So I hope, and I'm seeing indications of that. When you're seeing that Saskatchewan's outperforming with starts, outperforming with permits, both residential and other, outperforming in trade, outperforming, I'm seeing it, right? So as long as we keep putting our head down and we keep doing that, that's what we should be doing. So I hope in a year that we keep going down that path, and we just keep building the best Saskatchewan that we can. Sounds corny, I know.
It doesn't. I mean, from my perspective, I don't know how it doesn't work out. Our retirees aren't getting younger, and they're all moving to Saskatoon to be closer to their grandkids and healthcare.
Yes.
If you look at the mining industry, I don't see someone just putting a halt to that. Doesn't matter what tariffs are in place. I mean, big money is invested in Saskatchewan. BHP, I mean, how big is that mine? What's that mine worth right now?
It's a tremendous investment worldwide, not just for Saskatchewan, not just for Canada. This is a huge opportunity for us. It's bringing people here, employment, investment, and it has a trickle-down effect. So if you take a look at investment in the resource sector, it automatically has a trickle-down effect into our economy in all the sectors, right? And more people means more people paying taxes, and calling Saskatchewan home, right? I mean, we can talk about all the regulations too today, because there are certain regulations that some politicians would like to see. But when I'm talking about what kind of regulations and policies we can bring, is if you bring that investment in, then you're automatically creating more jobs. You're automatically creating wealth and growth. And as long as you can spread that to the most amount of people possible, then you're hitting something interesting.
So what is it that What is the biggest regulation the government wants to bring in?
I think we have a government right now that is still focused on growth, still focused on making sure that success as a province is touching the most amount of people as possible. But let's talk about it. Housing and affordability is a tough topic right now, right? I mean, we can be the most affordable place to call home, but if you're having a hard time getting into a home, then we're not meeting your needs, right? Or the home that you need for your family and for yourself. So it doesn't matter if you're the most affordable. So we also need to have a diversity of choice there, which we're working on. But affordability is also a big factor across this country. And so when people talk to me about rent control, I cringe a little bit, because that's the type of policy that's limiting your potential, limiting the inventory that we need, as opposed to a solution which would be keep building. What does it do when you keep building? You're creating jobs. People are working. You're buying supplies. You're hiring people. You're building. You're bringing people here. As opposed to a policy that is meant to constrain, then at that point, it's doing the opposite. We need more inventory.
We need 3 times the amount of inventory, and that's to say it on and that's probably minimum. I mean, we have 655 properties as of last night when I was doing an evaluation and showing somebody what we have, and they're like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, well, what that means is that it becomes less affordable for every family. Saskatoon is not a place where people feel like it's the most affordable place, right? When they don't feel it. They don't feel it. In the media, people say oh, Saskatoon's the most affordable place in the country. If you're sitting here with the average person that's buying a property, and it doesn't matter what job they have, it doesn't feel like this is a deal.
Because especially if you've been here for a long time, and you've seen the growth in numbers, you're wondering, what is happening, right? What is happening? And, but we're seeing that happen across the country. Inflation is very real, and it's happening, and it's hitting many people. And housing is the first place you're going to feel it, because it's the largest part where your budget is going, right? It's your largest expense, whether you're renting or owning. The largest part of your budget is the roof over your head.
Right.
So, and that's hard to take when you're seeing prices escalate quite a lot, especially in Saskatoon.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in probably the last 2 months, I felt meeting with clients and new buyers, frustration, anger, and wanting our market to correct. And
that's interesting. So wanting to correct.
So what they're seeing right now is what the media is telling us about the biggest centers: Toronto, Vancouver, even Calgary started to slow. But Saskatoon, I mean, if you look at what happened in 2008, and I've been in real estate since 2005, we have our own microeconomy. So we don't really follow suit to what happens in these larger centers.
That's Saskatchewan, though.
That is Saskatchewan.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And so right now, because they're getting outpriced to what they can afford, they're now wanting a correction. So that's what they're hoping for. So there's a lot of buyers that have been looking for a year or 2 years. Now they're saying, well, you know what? I'm going to put a hold on this because I'm going to wait to see what happens. And my suggestion is, I don't think it's a good idea. I only see this going up. If you look, let's go back into rents for a second. So I saw an article that said 1/3 of people that are renting are now paying 50% of their income to rent. Mm-hmm. Is that a real number?
Yeah, that's a real number. But again, to me, we have to look at what comprises our housing continuum in our city, in our province. And
what does that mean?
That means, do we have enough housing for every increment in our society, and does it meet the demand of salaries? So affordability is great to talk about, but the biggest thing about affordability, because you can say you have the lowest prices in the country, but if your salaries are also really low, then it's not really affordable. It's always relatable to salaries, average salaries. But when you take a look at average salaries, we are still the most affordable. Actually, the most affordable one, according to RBC, in just July 2025, is Regina. So the average price of a home relative to the average salary in that community, Regina is the first one. Second one, do you want to guess?
PA.
St. John's, Newfoundland.
Oh.
And the third one?
PA?
No, it's Saskatoon.
Oh, Saskatoon.
So you always have to take a look at the average salaries. You have to take a look at the economy.
So, but the average salary, though, I mean, we're now getting to a place that I think, and I mean, I'm not trying to be negative on this. I'm just that there are some major, like, I mean, I think our incomes overall for probably more executive level jobs and so forth have increased.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at minimum wage and so forth.
Exactly. So at that point, because we've said it, even as a professional association, we've said we don't have a housing inventory crisis. We have an affordable housing crisis, because where you're seeing presentation of offers, where you're seeing it really heat up, is in the market where housing is really affordable.
Right.
Right? You see the numbers, you see the difference between the higher end homes and, those who we could say are starter, right? Anything under 400,000. So that's where we need to add more inventory. And that's where the city, as an example, is investing in making more projects that are affordable, more projects that are helping those individuals get into the housing market at that end.
So how do they do that? Because I actually don't I've been trying to break down these numbers, but if you look at land, I mean, it's not affordable. So, I mean, that takes you totally out on that side of it. And where are you going to build those properties for that land value? The cost of construction has went up at least 35% since pre-COVID, cabinet costs and so forth. So how do you make it affordable? Who pays for it? Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, like everybody's been saying, like, let's make affordable housing. And I was like,
how?
That's a myth. Like, there is no such thing as affordable housing.
They need help. 100% they need help. Take a look at is it 40, 43 million, 48? I forget the exact number now. Over 40 million that the city of Saskatoon received for housing accelerator fund, which
where does that go?
Which many people opposed, and we made a point at the association to say, no, we can't talk a big game about housing and wanting more inventory, and then all of a sudden say, yeah, but we don't really like how you're bringing in this housing accelerator fund, right?
Right.
That ship has sailed. We are at a place where every time housing is involved, especially on the affordable housing part, we need to be saying yes every single time. We have a great project across the office that will be going up at Camponi, quite a few multi-units, and we have to say yes. I'm already hearing the critiques, and I'm like, I'm not allowing that space for it.
Well, everybody critiques everything.
Everybody
puts
critiques
up their
everything.
hand for change, and then as soon as change
they're
happens,
like,
they're like,
not in my backyard though.
Yeah.
But we have to take up space, or the reverse. We don't have to allow space to the negative talk about housing. It's like, yes, we are hearing the frustrations. We need more of these projects. We need them. And if our governments, like our municipalities, are showing up to help build or remove the red tape, reduce costs for affordable units, we have to say yes. We have to say yes.
So previously, we had to 2016, we had a lot more builders in our community, right? I think at one point it was like 278 builders. A lot of these builders ended up getting out of the business because of PST. This was a factor where the PST was actually basically the determining factor, because that was the profit for a lot of these smaller companies. And I'm talking about companies that built anywhere from like 1 to 14 houses a year, right? But those kind of companies, there was a lot of really good builders that were able to then, I guess, increase the inventory levels. How do we get to more builders to be able to do this? Because for them, it's not even that affordable, I think, right now.
I think we have to back up even more.
Okay. Because
the number of builders was actually not related to PST and the decrease. Saskatoon, if you compare it to Regina, Saskatoon had, a tremendous amount of builders compared to what Regina had, and that's been a couple decades in the making. Because if you remember, we have the city of Saskatoon is a government that dabbles in land development. So they have a land development branch known as the as Saskatoon Land. And at one point, they were selling land with very little regard to who was buying it.
Okay,
So,
I agree on that.
Yeah. So the industry organized and said, there has to be minimum standards when you're selling a lot to someone. You're committing to building a community,
Right.
and there has to be minimum standards. You can't just sell to anybody. They also need to be committed to the community. They need to be sticking around so that they can provide the work required on the warranty. They need to be sticking around because they're committed to Saskatoon. They need to be committed to safety. So in consultation, there was a collaboration between industry and the city to say, okay, there will be minimum standards. The people who we will sell land to will be committed to safety. There's going to be certain certifications that they have to have. They will have to have warranty. They will have to have a certain amount of education. They have to show commitment to our city. And in doing that, the number of builders reduced.
But at the same time, I'll say this, I represented 12 different builders at that time.
Yep.
And a lot of them did everything that you're talking about, but they mentioned the reason that they got out of it was just because that extra tax was a nail in the coffin, basically.
So in 2017, when the provincial government increased taxation on a number of items, which included PST on construction services.
Right.
And so that absolutely had a negative effect on all construction, not just residential. It had it on commercial, on large construction. Any type of construction in this province was hit. And what we saw is with residential construction was actually the only construction where it's the average person who's paying for it. Right? If you're building highways, if you're building institutions, there's a government paying for it, there's a larger business paying for it, there's somebody else. But for residential, it's you, it's me, it's the average person who's paying for it. And after a year, other construction sectors had started to rebound and were okay with the additional tax, and residential construction couldn't. And after 2 years, they still couldn't. I remember in Regina, there were weeks where there was not a single permit pulled for a residential home in Regina, which was unheard of at that time. I haven't been tracking it that closely since, but at that time there was no permits being pulled. Builders were trying to, because the price difference wasn't worth it. They would evaluate a home and the evaluation was coming up lower than what they could actually build it for. Well, at that point, you're halting your business completely. You have no business. And so that's why the PST rebate came in, because it didn't come in on any other construction sector. It only came in on residential construction.
So it is GST and PST rebate.
Yeah. So now we have a lot of potential right now, because we have a lot of policies that have come in to help residential construction. But remember, PST on construction came in 2017. And the day they were going to announce the PST rebate was 3 years later. And it was going to be a big win for the sector. Came in 3 days later, the same day that they halted the budget because the pandemic was in the province and we needed to adjust our finances. So it was on budget day when everything was halted. I don't know if you remember it. I remember it very clearly.
No, I don't.
In 2020, because that was supposed to be a day when they communicated, yes, help is coming for residential construction for the price of homes.
Right.
But instead, the big announcement was, we actually can't present a budget that day because there's too much uncertainty with the pandemic. And so they still moved ahead with it, but that came in 2020. And then this last budget, which was also a really great win, 5 years later, they made it permanent. So it's permanent in Saskatchewan. And I think that's a really good move, because you need to, as a province, you always have to think about what's the revenue to fund my services, right? But what's one that we can't touch? And it's housing. We have to have that rebate for housing, because the difference is, in my mind, it's the average person who's paying for that house.
It does make sense. I mean, a couple of things that we're going over is the affordability and competition in the market.
Yep.
And
competition is too high right now. It's too high. And we will not be affordable Okay, so regardless of whether you feel it or not, I'm just looking at the math, right?
Right,
Because
okay.
I do agree that if you don't feel that it's affordable, it's not working for you anymore, then that's not where you want to call someplace home. So I realize that part, but let's just look at the numbers and the math. So if you do take a look at Saskatoon, Regina, compared to other large centers that we compete with, we are the most affordable province to call home. However, we are at a cliff right now, and we will lose that very, very quickly because our market is too competitive right now. There's not enough inventory, and we will soon erode that competitive edge very, very quickly. So that, for me, next time I'm watching our market stats every month, I'm taking a look at the other provinces to see, okay, we're no longer in first place. Where are we? And as soon as we start eroding that, you can't get it back.
So how do we stay the most affordable?
Well, that's the question I was asking myself. How do we stay the most affordable, or is it more important to be one of the most affordable? And is there a difference in that, right? Whether you're third place or first place or fourth, right? How big is that gap, and who are you competing with? Those are all really important aspects. But I think we're also seeing increased collaboration in our country because of the whole trade wars and tariffs. We want to see increased collaboration. And so if we have a business from Alberta coming in to invest in Saskatchewan, I'm not going to criticize that, right? It's Canadian investment, and we always want more of that.
Well, it's interesting. I was just talking to a friend that's in commercial real estate, and he was just saying that their light and heavy commercial side is just as strong as the residential market.
Yeah.
So if that just means less inventory in the future, because they're going to need more jobs to be able to fill those positions of those massive companies that are either moving in or being created,
Yep.
and so forth.
There's a correlation there between commercial and residential, right? It flows back and forth. And so we need to be building more. As you said what? We need 3 times more, and that's probably not enough. Fully agree with you. It's probably not enough. We have to keep going. So the next question is, do we have the labor here required to fulfill that? And
a couple of the things that, I mean, talking to friends that own companies, they're just saying, like, the only thing that we're building right now, so like this is electrical and plumbing and so forth, it's all building apartment buildings that are all rental.
Yep.
So if you look at some of our largest developers or even companies, like in the construction side, they're only building rentals right now.
Yep.
So we have a less than a 1% vacancy rate, I think, overall in the city, which is why we've seen such a major, I guess, increase in rental costs. When do they pivot? Like when do they then go back to building single family homes so that our market gets, or our market, I guess, we get more inventory?
Well, we need more rental, yes.
Right.
100%. I mean, that's a good question for builders as well. You can build a home, but if nobody's buying it, right? Because people are asking me, why are we not building more? Well, you can build, but if nobody's buying it, then the inventory is not moving.
Right.
So the trick is to get more people who are buying into the new stock so that we can have more inventory coming. However, if the new stock is too expensive, then you're deterring too many people to the current housing stock. Take a look at the price difference between Saskatoon and Regina. Saskatoon benchmark price, there's a quiz for you.
I have no idea right now.
I think it's 420, 450.
I thought it was higher, 455 or something like that.
We're both going to be wrong.
I guess it
Put
all
it on the screen later.
To be honest, it depends on how many $1 million properties have sold.
It's close to, it's almost, thank you. I can't see it from here.
Ryan? 435.
Okay, 435.
Right in between.
So
okay.
435, and you take a look at Regina. Regina is almost, it's like $90,000 less. And
is that because nobody wants to live there?
No.
Just kidding.
No. The price difference.
Is it a government?
There's always been a price difference between Regina and Saskatoon, right? So I can't talk about the history there. I don't know it. But
we should delete the joke about Regina.
We love all communities in Saskatchewan.
We do.
But I do think there is an impact when a municipality increases levies, increases red tape, standards, all of that. It doesn't, at the end of the day, increase prices for a new home. I'll give you a recent example of in Saskatoon a few months ago, City Council increased a home, and a comment that just irked me from the council table was, well, it's only $2,000 more per door. Not a big deal. Well, every $2,000 that you add and you think it's not a big deal, you're creating that gap. And as long as that gap widens, you're sending more people to the current housing stock, which is okay. You know, everybody makes a decision. Do you want a new car or do you want a used car, depending on what your budget is, what you're looking for? And again, a car and a house, not the same investment.
Right.
But at one point, the new product is too expensive because it's pushing too many people towards the current housing stock. That will, and now I'll use that, correct itself over time. But right now, I suspect a new home is too expensive in Saskatoon compared to what you can do in Regina and compared to the current housing stock.
So why we have a lot of people looking in smaller cities or towns around Saskatoon.
Yeah, fun fact. So before the pandemic, research showed that somebody was willing, the average Canadian was willing to drive 30 minutes from their place of work if they could have more home for the same price or a more affordable home. And since the pandemic, because, you know, everything has changed since then, individuals were willing to drive 60 minutes. Well, in Saskatchewan, if you take a look at Saskatoon and you do you do a 1 hour radius all the way around,
Yeah.
like you have a lot of fabulous communities there
Right.
that are very affordable, have an excellent standard of living, and just, yeah, there's a lot of options in Saskatchewan, a lot. But gone are the days too when you're seeing empty houses in these small communities. They're also struggling, right? Every single community that we track metrics for in Saskatchewan, every single one this year has seen an increase. 8 of those have seen record increases.
It makes sense. Like if I was looking at some communities on the west side of the city,
Yeah.
we've seen some increases by, like last year, I think it was 17% in Massey Place. And I was like, these are places that used to be super affordable
Yeah.
to be able to live in, and now are pricing out a lot of people, right? Like it's actually, like when I first got in, there was a massive difference between prices from the east, the north, and the west. And now I'm like, some of those prices, I mean, I was dealing with a really nice lady that moved in from I believe it was Delmany,
Yeah.
and we were looking on the west side of the city for a house. And for under 400,000, I was in disbelief myself after looking through it of what you could actually get. And she was pretty disheartened, right? Because it was like she came from a really nice home that she lived in there for a long time, moving into the city to be closer to family.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was super disheartening. Right. And so it's like, as a realtor, we still have hearts, like we still care about our clients and so forth. Right. Like a lot of people think like, this is amazing. And I was like, it's not easy out there, right?
No,
Because you're
it's
dealing
not.
with more people's emotions and so forth. It's like even people that are moving out of their larger 2 stories
Yeah.
and now looking at moving into a bungalow. They used to think they'd be able to pocket a bunch of cash and so forth. And now that bungalow now went up a lot of money, and you might be looking at 600 to 650,000 for something that might still need to be renovated.
Yeah, and I think that's where the biggest shock is if you've been in Saskatchewan for this time and you've seen the prices go up. Traditionally, our market has not been like the larger centers where there can be a large up and down swing. We've typically been that market where it's just like slow growth. We're just ticking along, right? There's growth, but it's not. There's no sharp ups and downs. It's just like slowly going up. And we've seen this type of market before. You remember?
Yeah.
2007. And
2006, 2007, 2008 was wild.
Yes, it was absolutely wild.
Yeah.
And we could see our numbers mimicking that, and we could see it coming. And that means we just weren't fast enough to get that inventory ready. We can't talk about growth as a province and not include housing and affordability in those conversations. We can't. If we are talking about our growth goals for 2030, then my personal first question is, okay, what are our housing goals? How are we going to make sure that we're supporting our builders, that we're supporting all of that professional network that's supporting those individuals trying to get through that market? And are we going to be keeping a very, very watchful, sharp eye on affordability. So when we're talking about growth, those are the other aspects in my mind that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of these stats getting thrown out there, and it's like rah, Saskatchewan's doing amazing. But there's a lot of people being left behind, right? And so, yeah, so we're only as strong as our most vulnerable, I think.
We are only as strong as our most vulnerable. And I, for one, will always be supporting any kind of housing project that gets people into safe, appropriate housing for what they need. We need more of that. And so you won't find me, and maybe that's somewhat conflicting with the work that I do, but you won't find me saying no to housing because it's not appropriate for that neighborhood. Because I don't think it's appropriate to say anybody's not appropriate for a neighborhood. I think we all belong here, and so it's finding appropriate housing, safe, and we need more of that. So absolutely. That's why I can't wait to see that project, that Camponi project, go up across our office. Because I think it's a perfect fit, and I'm looking for the opportunity of people to say, no, we don't want it there, because I think we can find a pretty strong community that will say, no, that's not appropriate.
Well, the wild thing is that land has just been sitting there vacant since I was a little kid. I grew up in Wildwood. There was nothing being developed there for absolutely ever, and they don't even use it for parking.
No.
They don't use it for parking because Lakewood isn't it that busy.
And it's on a transit route.
Right.
It's across the library. It's across the civic center. It will still have parking.
Schools, you got parks,
trees.
Yeah.
It's the perfect place for single moms, single dads, like people to just want a fresh start, just to have a safe home. It's the perfect place. Absolutely.
Right. That's awesome. Well, thanks, Chris Guérette, for the CEO of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Association, coming on to our podcast once again. We believe this is probably our 1-year anniversary and birthday of when we launched. No cake and no balloons and the rest of it. I think we had bigger celebrations, I think, when we moved to Coldwell Banker Signature with some of those explosion, whatever, you twisters off. But I just like your insight. Thank you for coming on once again. I appreciate you as a leader in the community and being part of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Association. I think you've made it a better place, and I think that it shows by I guess just the relationships that realtors now have with the board themselves.
Good.
And I think that hopefully we continue to just grow and hopefully be leaders, because you are right. We touch every single household in Saskatoon. So if it's not through rentals, through first-time home buyers or people downsizing or so forth, in some way a realtor's touched it. So hopefully we can make a bigger impact and do more in the community. So thanks for joining us. If anybody wants to check out more of the podcast, because a lot of people have mentioned they've just seen clips of it, you can go to YouTube, subscribe, you can like and follow us. It's Bamford & Co. on YouTube. So thanks a lot, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.